This meeting is being recorded.
Perfect. Just a couple more people joining in. Pull Scott. Sorry, just making sure I'm getting everybody in on a Friday afternoon. It's Mike.
Okay, I got my eye on it, Sean, if you want to.
All right. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining in today. We just wanted to provide an update from the school building committee on a few things that have been changing. But in order to start, we got to do the, pursuant to the open meeting law for conducting via Zoom, we have to do a roll call vote of members that are here. So I'll start with kind of who I'm seeing on the checkerboard. So Ada.
I'm here.
Betty.
I'm here.
Aqua.
Here.
Carrie.
Here.
Scott.
Here.
Mike.
That's me.
How are you, sir? And I think that's it. Tim will probably be joining, and possibly Glenn will be jumping on at some point too. But just in the matter of time, we will get started. So what we wanted to do today is kind of give an update, as I said, from school building committee of essentially some progress we've made since our last meeting. Specifically joining us today is Jim Rasmussen. He is the DCR forester that had written the letter with Joe Mondugno and Pete Jackson previously. So as I mentioned at our last meeting, I was going to contact Jim and essentially do a site walk with him to understand the site a little bit better. Jim's on the phone with us today. He's kind of driving, so I'm gonna, hopefully, let him speak for a minute in regards to the site. I'm going to pull up a site map just while he discusses and try to point to some of the areas that we discussed while we were there, and then kind of fill you in on some of the updates. So Jim, if you're still with us, I'd love for you to jump in. And like I said, I'm going to share my screen.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me. I just got to say at the beginning, who I am and who I'm not, right? So my name's Jim Rossman. I'm a service forester with DCR, but I have a very limited role in that I work with, I'm a private lands outreach forester. So I'm not the DCR, I'm not the parkways, I'm not skating rinks, I'm not, the normal DCR signs you guys will be familiar with. I work with private landowners to help them, manage forest land, and that includes private landowners, that includes land trusts, that includes municipal properties. So therefore, my role in this, in this would be purely as an advisory to anyone that has an interest in this. So I've explained it to Sean, to Joe, to others that ask me. I'm willing to speak to anybody about what I see as a forester, and help people make decisions when it comes to forest land. What I'm not is obviously a town resident. I don't have an interest in what happens. I mean, I'm not neutral in that I'm a forester, so obviously I'm a pro trees type of guy, just because that's my chosen career. But what I've encouraged everyone to do is to make a good decision and follow process and to gather as much information at every step from all the different fields that you can. And so I have some limited ability to add to that from the natural resource standpoint. So what I can do is just talk to, if everyone can keep in mind that I'm not, again, a Milton resident, I'm not familiar with other sites, I'm not familiar with other schools, I'm not familiar with, except that I know it's a difficult decision, and a decision that faces a lot of communities. What I can speak to is what I saw on the parcel, which some of that it was an email to Joe, because when I first was invited to go out on the property, they invited me to come up and walk the property and just give them an email about what I had seen as a forester. I think I'm hoping, Sean, everyone has that available, so I won't have to go through that in a lot of detail. But obviously, this parcel is some historical significance in that it was the land parcel, so it was an old estate parcel. It's interesting because when you get out there and when we walked with Sean, we saw this. You have these large kind of older trees that go back to the estate days. Probably were left in like a park light setting over top a second age forest that's closer to 40 years old, that's kind of filled in underneath. So you have what we'd call a 2H forest, where you have these large dominant, older trees, almost above a second forest, but but at that point, that second forest is more what you typically see, a younger forest underneath. Diversity is pretty good. Not a lot of invasive species, at least not down by the road. Obviously, it's adjacent to the parkway, so it has some value to the parkway as well. What Sean is spoke to is about how on any parcel, the values, the conservation values or the landscape values are not usually evenly distributed. You can think about that in any parcel on your own, is that you start seeing hot spots of conservation, from either a wildlife standpoint or aesthetic standpoint or water, a watershed protection standpoint. And that is the case on this parcel, in that it's not kind of 7 acres of equally distributed forest. Right down by the parkway, it's very interesting in that, again, you have those large, dominant, older trees over a younger forest. You have the stone entrance there at the parkway itself, and then you have a wetland that's actually, I think, on the Home Inc. property, a vernal pool wetland as if you're looking into the parcel from the parkway, that would be to the right. And then you have the road bordering the road that borders the high school. I forget the name of that, Guile Street, I think, Guile Road, that goes into the high school is on the left-hand portion. So again, looking into that lower portion of the property, lower meaning it's down slope, very high value from a historic standpoint, very high value from a water protection standpoint for that wetland that's to the right. It's a very interesting part of the parcel there. Then as you walk into the parcel, you kind of go up a hill, and there's kind of some large trees kind of distributed up on the hill, and there's a small opening there that has some grasses growing in it. I think that occurred from a large tree tipping over years ago and kind of created an open, once those big trees, if a big tree comes down like that, they're large enough they can kind of create a big opening on the parcel. And so originally I thought that was a building site, but I actually think it's a tip over site from a large tree coming down years ago. And so that's kind of at the crest of the hill. That's probably, it's clearly only about a third of the property, but again, a higher percentage of the value is from there down to the parkway. As you move towards the back of the property, you're kind of walking towards the high school existing tracks. There's still some large trees up in there. It becomes a little more scattered though, and it switches more to a pine forest. And then, at the extreme back of the property, as you're like right at the base of the running track, there's actually some disturbed part of the parcel there. Probably occurred when the running track got put in. When that parcel was developed for the high school, and there are some invasive species there, and it's kind of more open there. And then there's kind of a leg that sticks behind the Home Inc. Property. Sorry, Sean, I'm driving. I can see the map you have up, but I can't quite look at it real closely. But there's kind of a dog leg in there that goes behind the parcel there where the it's Home Inc. Right? That's the name of that development there.
Yep.
Again, still a few scattered larger trees there, but more typical, what I'd call typical forest there, not quite the same as it was down, along the parkway on the entrance in. And that probably has to do with where the original home was in there, where the original estate was. That may have been more disturbed up in there. And when the town got that parcel, they talk about there was 2 acres of open land, which you really can't find anymore, but it may have been up in there because the trees are slightly younger in there. And then we also looked at a parcel across the street. I'm sorry, I'm not sure. I think that might be conservation, existing conservation. I'm not sure. I know it's municipal land across Guile Road.
Yeah, sorry, Jim, just for clarification, it's active recreation parkland.
Okay.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, and we talked about that. Everything we looked at together, both that time I was out with Joe and the time that we were out with Sean. Again, not all land is created equal, and there's definitely less value over there because that site had been pretty heavily disturbed. You can tell by the soil. It has a lot of invasive Norway maple, which is a tree, but it's, as its namesake, it's from Norway. It usually occupies disturbed sites. You'll see it a lot in Milton. And we talked about if if the town and the community decide that they have to do something in this area, and again, I'm not speaking to that per se tonight. That's not a decision that I would make. I'm always trying to say, okay, well, if you had to do something there, that across the road from Guile Road, that area has, lower, not zero, but lower ecological value than the Lamb piece, what I'm calling the Lamb piece, the 7-acre piece that we initially walked. And then you have the road itself. And I know, Sean, you wanted me to talk about the realignment of the road. One of the things we talked about.
You're breaking up a little, Jim. Yes. So Jim, you're breaking up a little.
Looking at a broader sense, looking at what's the land parcel. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Jim.
Sorry, is that any better?
Yeah, you're
I'm driving,
now.
so
Yep.
any better there?
Yep.
Maybe I'll try to shut my video off and see if that helps at all.
Yeah, that might
Driving
help
down
you.
Route 24 right now, so I thought it would be a pretty good connection. Put up as quickly as possible.
Yeah, sounds better now. If you could start with that side of Guile Road you were talking about.
Yeah, across the Guile Road itself is interesting to look at, in that I do think it should be considered, as space, even though it has an existing road on it, and Sean brought up something about possible realignment of the road itself and how that might have some value to the project. And then across the street from that, I don't know if you heard me say that parcel has a couple acres that has been previously disturbed and has a fair amount of invasive species, both in the understory and in the tree canopy, does not have that historical characteristic that you have in the rest of the parcel. So is that helpful? And hopefully you guys were able to hear most of what I said there.
Yes, sir. Extremely helpful. So what I'll do is.
Yeah. And just as a final, I just want to acknowledge, everybody. I don't want to say on sides of this issue, because I know that everyone wants to do what's best for the students and what's best for the town. So just, I acknowledge that these are difficult decisions, and the process is super important, in these decisions. So I commend you guys, and I commend everybody in the town who's involved, just for the thoughtfulness and willingness to reach across the aisle and to, talk to each other. And I know it's difficult, so I'm willing to help out in any way to anyone, involved, if it's helpful.
Yeah, I want to personally thank you, Jim, for taking time out, previously to do the site walk with me, and then even today, on a Friday to join us for this call. Your input, I'm going to elaborate on it a little bit more, just to kind of update people on what we're doing. So feel free to stay on the call, but if you have to jump off, fully understood on our end.
Yeah. And so appreciate the opportunity. Like I said, I'm available to anybody of any interest. I'm making myself available as transparent as possible, just to I have that one role to play, that if somebody shows me, something and says, can you speak to this from a conservation, from a forestry standpoint, that's kind of my role in these processes. I mean, I know there's a lot of expertise probably in the room and in the community that need to weigh in on this to make the best decision for the community. And I wish you all well in doing that. So
perfect. So yeah, kind of following up, from the discussion that we had there, as far as our agenda is.
Sean, may I just say one thing? I'm just wondering if while Jim is on the line, if any of our school building committee members have any questions for him directly.
Yeah, that would be good. So open up. If any of you guys have any questions, just raise your hand using the raise hand function. If you don't, we can move on. Nope. All right. So as Jim talked about the area that's the lower part of the land parcel, the conservation parcel that we're talking about, there's a peak in the topography that occurs roughly about 300 feet out. and it's a hill that goes downward. So anyone who was on the site walk or has walked it recently might know that area. And within there were a number of trees. So when I was on the site walk, as Jim mentioned, Pete Jackson and Joe Manduno also joined us. And, part of what I was looking at is, being myself as an engineer, just thinking out loud. When I was looking at Gow Road up here and knowing that there's opportunities, that this land was not as buildable. So if you recall from previous presentations, we looked at trying to site a school on that park parcel. It wasn't big enough, when we started looking at it. And I've kind of overlaid, what the concept of the school looks like now. So while I was out there looking at it, the idea I came up with, and for me, it's kind of taken traction over the past couple of weeks, the more I've kind of thought about this, is I was standing on Gow Road and you're watching, Gow Road as it comes in and turns and then comes back down to Blue Hill Parkway. My idea, and I'm putting it out to our committee today, kind of for discussion purposes, so you can see, is if we take Gow Road and realign it further in to the park parcel that's there, what that does now is open up or create a space now between the two parcels that we might be able to utilize. So by doing so, we would create a parcel that would be parks land that we were looking at, and then a smaller portion of conservation land that we could do. So that essentially the take of the conservation land would be less. Roughly, I think it's about 3.5 acres. And then it'd be another 3 to 3.5 acres here, equating still out to this, 6.8 to 7 acres that we had before. And again, these are all schematic. So the thing that happens on the park parcel that we have to be aware of is the heavy blue line that we see here is the wetland boundary from the survey that was done 20 years ago when they constructed Gow Road. When we offset that of the 25-foot no build zone and then the additional 75 feet for 100-foot buffer from that wetland area, I kind of sketched in, as best I could to scale a road that would kind of align around this kind of belly, if you call it that. What the process is, from what I can tell right now, is, and I've reached out to BSC Group for additional survey, is essentially, this is going to be 3 parts. So, well, actually, before we even go there, the biggest portion of this entire thing is, for us to do this option, it will not work within the framework of the current article for town meeting. So essentially, we would be entertaining a motion to refer this back at town meeting for further study. And then that further study is these next 3 steps I'm going to talk about. So in talking with BSC Group, the further study we would do is, the first step is they would come in and survey this entire plot of land and accurately map out the wetland boundaries that are here. The second portion of that would be, after those wetland boundaries are kind of established through a current survey, they would then design a road within that boundary. And then the third part would be, surveying the remaining boundaries of what we would be taking as parkland on this side. Apologize. And what would be remaining of our take of conservation land on the other side. So essentially reducing the conservation land take. The intent would be the other side of Gow Road of everything that we're doing here. I think we would still, convert that to conservation land or ownership of the Conservation Commission, similar to what we were doing under the current article. So yeah, so this for our committee, I'm opening this up essentially for comment. This is also why on the agenda we kind of put citizen speak towards the end of the presentation, just so if people wanted to speak to this, they could speak to it before, because nobody's known about this up till now. But I open up to the committee, so if anybody has comments or questions, just please raise your hand. And Tim, if you could, Hans, we'll hit the public during citizen speak, if you don't mind.
Sure, yeah. So I guess one question or consideration I have, and I think most of the school building project, or at least certainly a bunch of it, the previous projects were constructed prior to this portion of Guile Road being constructed. So maybe this isn't a concern, but a concern I have is, to what extent do we have utilities running under or alongside that existing road? And I'm just thinking about that in the context of the added cost of moving the road and what other infrastructure there is.
Yeah, so when I walk the road, I look to see if there's sewers or any drainage structures or anything like that, and it's not. It's essentially just asphalt with a curb on the side and a walkway.
Yeah, that's great.
Mhm. The only other utilities that are there are essentially the roadway lighting poles, but that's
Right.
minor.
Yep.
Aqua, you're next.
I'm not quite sure what we're solving for here. Why this other proposal? So that's my first question.
Mhm.
The next question is the process question. I do not see that taking a smaller portion of the land would reduce the amount of time or effort would need to, that it would take for us to take a larger portion of the land, and would now have to deal with two issues in my mind. One is the conservation and the other is park land. It sounds like we're trying to take conservation land and park land. I think this makes it a lot more complicated than the initial proposal that we had. I'll be happy to hear what's your feedback on those two.
Yes, sir. The complicated end of it is more complicated. However, the good thing, as far as conversations we've had with town council, essentially both parcels fall under Article 97 for open space. Whether it's conservation land or parkland. So what we're looking at is identifying additional parcels to add into the swap. We're working with Tim Zawinski currently to do that. And yeah, it will be more complicated. The plus side of it, from what I see, is since we've identified this parcel, I've been looking for input from folks to tell me what are the key areas that they wanted to save, and it's been tough until meeting with the state forester, and he kind of identified that this frontage area of 300 feet there. And as I walked it with them, probably the same as you guys, I'm not a forester. I would look at it to see trees, but as I walked it with him and he started pointing out some of these things, it kind of became apparent of, yeah, okay, if we could save these in some other way, how could we do that? And that's kind of where the idea of realigning the road came up. And yeah, it's, as you guys know, I've dedicated a lot of time over the past 3 or 4 months on this. And the reasons I like this better are twofold, or threefold actually. One, saving that 300-foot frontage of conservation land, I think helps some of the folks that are opponents to us, that are against us taking conservation land. The other portion of this too, and I'll touch on this also, I had a meeting with Home Inc. For a lot of Q&A. I think it was last Wednesday night. By gaining that additional parcel in blue, we're able to take the building from essentially adjacent to Home Inc. and essentially try to site it where Guile Road is now. And I think that will reduce some of the impact on Home Inc. too. So by doing that, it works a little better. And then thirdly, or lastly, I hope you can appreciate this, being from Pine Tree Brook, but essentially creating this roadway over here. I mean, we can't, through state law, and I think our architect made us aware of this, of like any water runoff can't be greater on our site than what it already exists. But having this roadway here, if we had to introduce drainage structures or something like that, would essentially become a barrier for anything that would run into the brook. So hopefully we could reduce it that way. So I hope that answers you, Aqua.
Yes, it answers, but I don't see why we're trying to use a more complicated solution to solve a simpler problem. And I can tell you, being from the Pine Tree Brook area, that moving the road closer to us would also create some agitation. So we're trying to make one person happy while a lot more people are going to be unhappy.
Yeah,
we can move on. We don't have to solution it on this call.
No, that's fine. I appreciate the feedback. Right, Scott?
Thanks, Sean. So understanding this is really at a feasibility level, not even a conceptual level yet, real high level, but I like this plan a lot better for a few reasons. I think it's a better use of town land overall. I think we can get a better master plan for the site and a better plan for the school in the shape of this lot than the way it was before. And then I think overall, it's better for the Parkway and the Home Inc. neighbors. So it seems like it's going to be more complicated, but we might have more support with a plan like this, and I think it really locks in what this property is going to be for a long term.
Appreciate it. And touching on support, I'll let Mike, he's got his hand raised, so I'll let him jump in and talk about it a little more too.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. So I wanted to go back to what Aqua alluded to, and Scott as well. What are we solving for? I mean, obviously, we've been trying to solve a problem for 3 years, right? And we had a solution that we thought was a good solution, and we're trying to get the best solution for all concerned here, whether it be the abutters or the residents in the area, or the conservation interests as well, right? And so what this solves is that it improves things for the conservation interests markedly. It probably gives us more land between the project and Home Inc., which again improves the project for all concerned. And by bringing it back from the roadway, it improves things for the residents in the area. So I think the idea with what it solves for is it improves the project for all concerned. Now, the question on the Pine Tree Brook area, my understanding is that would actually help the flooding area if that street were moved over, and that remains to be seen. But in my view, even though it delays the project for up to 4 months until the next town meeting, because this would be outside the scope of the current article. And if we could make the change for this article, we would, but it'd be outside the scope, right? So it delays it for 4 months, but it doesn't necessarily make it any more complicated, because the steps are the same. We go to the Parks Commissioners, we go to the Conservation Commission, we go to the Warrant Committee, and we have to obviously get the additional work from DRA and I'm sorry, not DRA, but BSC to get the land surveyed. So that adds a layer, getting the land surveyed and working that out so the plot plan works. But in terms of the process, I don't think it's more complicated. It's just doing it again. But I think the benefit, the upside to it, I think personally, and that it's a better plan for all concerned here. And that's what I think it solves, Aqua.
The one other thing too, and I'll share my screen again, is the nice part of by doing this too, and I'm just thinking aloud here, is that long kind of boundary that we had here with Home Inc. When we tried to do an offset or a buffer for that, it was difficult because it would go along that entire lot line. By redrawing this here, we're able to it gives us a lot more space to work with, rather than a boomerang shaped site that we're already conceding roughly 100 feet here based on our last meeting. We now get a much more rectangular site, and it allows us to kind of play around a little bit more, and part of, so on the agenda too is, the touch of my meeting with Home Inc. So just so everyone's aware, I met with Home Inc. last week with a number of their residents. Joanne Bonner, who's on the call, was gracious enough to host us. Ada and myself were there. We basically answered questions. I think it was like 2.5 hours of questions, which was great. That's the type of feedback we're looking for. And, by having a parcel like this now that kind of allows us a little more space, one of the things I was adamant of letting them know of, like, as we progress with this project, we need their input. And by allowing the building to be sited further away, it gives some more options to us on the site to kind of address what might be some of their concerns too. So yeah, I think that kind of plays in what Mike was talking about is a better option for us. Yep, Mike.
Yeah, I just want to add, and again, in response to some of what Aqua said, I don't think we do this to try to get everyone to agree, right? Because everyone's not going to agree. We're trying to solve a problem and do the best for all concerned here. I don't think we should be under the illusion that even with these changes, everyone's going to agree. There are going to be people that are opposed to this regardless, and they're going to raise everything they can, whether it's a legitimate argument or not. They're just going to raise everything, and that's fine, right? But I do think it addresses some of the concerns that have been raised, and it does make the overall project one that is better for everyone in the area and all concerned. So I don't think we do it thinking everyone's going to automatically say, great, we're all on board. But I do think it represents, a continuing effort to try to solve the problem in the best way possible.
Yeah, and part of what will be part of this process again over the next couple months, Aqua too, is meeting with Pine Tree Brook and educating them, why this construction of this road, moving closer there would not be a problem, for the brook. So and we can discuss that more. Ada.
Well, I just want to say I agree with the other points that have been made about the positive reasons why we want to move in this direction. It's disappointing to me to have to delay this even by a month because we see the needs of the overcrowding of the students in the schools. And we just hate to have to push this timeline out any further than it already is, which is pretty lengthy. But I do feel that this revised plan does address a lot of the concerns that we've been hearing, and that was the reason that I feel like I support this move, even though it means taking a little bit more time to get this additional information.
So for folks on the committee, for us to, I think what we're looking for, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, do we have to take a vote for this, or just letting people know there'll be a recommendation for it?
No, I think it's best to take a vote, and I'll make a motion to recommend to the select board that the Article 34 be referred back for further study, so that an updated article with these revisions can be included in the warrant for the next town meeting.
I'll second that.
All right. So with that, we'll have to do a roll call vote and I'll call out on the checkerboard that's there. Mike Zulis.
Yes.
Ada Rosemary.
Yes.
Betty White.
Yes.
Aqua Wong.
What are we voting on for this new plan?
Yeah, essentially to refer the article that we have now back for further study.
Irrespective of what the new plan would be, right?
Correct. Yeah, it would. I think
I support it if we are not locked into the new plan.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that's part of the further study that we'll have to go back to look at. So is that a yes, Aqua? Sorry.
Yes, I support it as long as we're not locked to the new plan.
Yeah, let me amend in that regard. Then let me amend. I think the motion I made was that an article with these revisions be included on the warrant for the next town meeting. So let me amend that to say an updated article be included on the warrant for the next town meeting. So that will be the motion.
With that language, I support it fully.
Perfect. Thank you. Scott Tereshek.
Yes.
Tim Lombard,
Yes, and I appreciate the clarification and the friendly amendment from Mike and from Aqua.
and Carrie Hurley,
Yes.
and myself, yes. I don't see Glenn Hoffman on, so a couple people still trying to get in. So I think with that, so the one other thing I had on the agenda, let's pull it up real quick. So one of the things that we're looking to do too, that we're looking to do for this article too, and I'd like to get it ahead on it, is the stone entrance pillars that Jim Rasmussen talked about as the entrance. I've always seen those as an entrance to the site for kids walking up to school. And what we were going to be working on was essentially a rendering there to look, this to show what it will look like in the future and stuff like that. So I've identified some people to do that work for us. So I didn't know if we want to kind of, vote on that now so we can kind of have that on there. Hey, Eamon. So yeah, so for that on the agenda, that was one of the other, I think, votes we're looking to have today.
So Sean, you need a motion to approve the services to do a rendering of the entrance gates. Is that what you're asking us?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. All right. I'd make that motion.
Before
I
the
can second
motion-
that.
Before the motion, can we,
Oh, I apologize.
given the change in and the thoughts of changes, wouldn't it be too early to start engaging and determining where the entrance would be? Because we move the project a little bit to the right, that may not be a suitable entrance. Wouldn't that be putting the cart before the horse? Why don't we agree where it would stay and then get a rendering on how the entrance would be?
Yeah, just knowing where those entrance gates are, we're not demolishing them. We're never touching those, and most likely there's already roughly like a cart path that leads up that entrance right now, and that was always a vision of the entrance to the school, of like walking through the woods up to there, and that was just one of the other things I was thinking about.
Yeah, I think we should clarify that we're talking about a walking entrance, not a driving entrance. The driving entrance would still be Guile Road, the current entrance.
And I can pull the Google Maps image up if you'd like, just so you can kind of see what those pillars look like. Yes, no.
Sure.
Yeah, that would be great. And regardless of what the outcome of the further study on our previous motion that we voted in the affirmative on, we would potentially look at this either way, right?
Correct. Yeah. That's what I'm just trying to get a little bit ahead of it. So just give me 1 second. I'll pull it. Sorry about this. I should have had that prepped. That's it. So if you can see this aqua, there's essentially two pillars. This is when we did the site walk. People would walk up here, and there's roughly a cleared path, not a cleared path, but for us, I've always envisioned this as like the entrance to walk up to the school, rather than, if you remember now, the road's going to kind of curve and go way over. This would kind of be, from what I was seeing, a nicer path or entrance up to the school. So that's why I was hoping to hire somebody to do some renderings of essentially what a path would look like up here, Photoshop some students or children kind of walking up there too. And I'm fine holding it too, if that's what people want to do too. So just let me know.
Thank you for taking the time to share this. I walk past this, as you know, Sean, every day. So I know what it looks like.
Oh,
What I was trying to say was maybe we should decide on where it's located, but Tim did mention that maybe we're going to do this irrespective of where we locate. And if we're certain that we're going to do it either way, then we can get the rendition.
okay. And just to be clear too, the rendering, the cost I got, or the quote for it, was $2,000 to do. So I don't know if that has to be in the motion, but it was.
Sure, we can add that to the motion.
Okay.
Mhm. So we have a motion on the table with a second. Are there any
Oh,
other?
Yep, was it seconded? I apologize, I didn't hear that.
Yep.
Seconded by Betty.
Very good, very good. All right, so do another roll call vote. Aqua, Bob,
Yes.
Mike Zulus,
Yes.
Ada Rosemary,
Yes,
Betty White,
Yes.
Scott Tereshek,
Yes.
Tim Lombard,
Yes.
Carrie Hurley,
Yes.
and myself is a yes too. Perfect. So I think the next portion of our agenda is citizen speak. So yeah, we typically limit citizen speak to 15 minutes. I don't think we've hit that limit yet. But with the number of people here, we might want to extend it a little bit too. But what we try to do is keep everyone to kind of a 3-minute talking point. So if you don't mind, raise your hand. Hans, I know I saw your hand up earlier, so if you want to jump in. And all right, Amy, sorry, no last name in there, so feel free, floor is yours. And you're still on mute, Amy.
if we could get your first and last name and your address, Amy, that would be appreciated.
Right. This is a borrowed computer. My name is Judy Steele, Precinct 2.
Okay.
And I just want to say how encouraged I am watching this meeting and the effort that is being put in to address all the various concerns that are out there at the moment and seem to have divided us in a way. Now it offers somewhat of a solution to unite us behind this endeavor to have a new school. So count me in and continue this work. I know it is more work for you, but hopefully it will produce a more harmonious agreement to this project by most of the citizens in the town. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Aaron?
Hi, Sean. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you're loud and clear.
Great. Thanks. This is Erin Bradley, Select Board Member, Warrant Committee Member, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 4, 28 Lincoln Street. Come on by, everybody. So I have a quick question about, as we all know, there's not a lot of turf fields in our beautiful town. It's something that many families have spoken to me about. I know that we are about to embark on the Lower Guile Road turf, and I'm just curious how this change is going to impact that development and that positive progress that we're starting to make.
Yeah, so typically with citizen speak, Aaron, we don't answer questions, but you know, I'll do my best.
Okay, sorry about that, Sean.
No, it's fine. I'll do my best to keep it brief. As you can tell, I'm very lax with most of our rules, anyways. But you know, that's going to be part of the further study that we'll be doing. You know, I mean, the realignment of that road and some of the stuff that's going on there. As Scott mentioned, it's a very high-level conceptual, you know, project that we put together, and we'll touch on that. Mike, you had something you wanted.
I just want to add, one of the things that it could do is get more parking closer to that field. And that's one of the things that has bedeviled that area for a long time. So if that corner right, can be used and the parking is closer to that, it will actually help that area. Because as anyone goes down to Donovan Field or any of those fields knows, it's parking is a real problem. So it could help.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for that, Mr. Zulus, because I thought that by moving this, we would have to scrap those plans to put turf down there. So thank you for that, that information.
Okay. Thank you, Aaron. Joanne, you're up. And you're on mute, Joanne.
Okay.
There we go.
Hi, Joanne Bonner. I'm a resident of Home Inc. and have been very pleased to hear this news. I'm very happy that we had a productive meeting with Sean and Ada last week. A lot of residents did come out and share their concerns, and clearly they were listened to. And I think some of them were pretty skeptical that was going to happen. So a few people at Home Inc. had thought about moving Guile Road and wondering why it hadn't been considered. So I know everybody will be happy to hear this news, and we will be looking forward to continue to work with you. And I'd like to thank the committee very much.
Thank you. Perfect. And obviously, Joanne, you know, if you guys want a kind of more in-person presentation on this, just let me know. I'll happily come back up.
Thank you.
Yep. Next, Margaret Carrolls. And
hi, everybody. Thank you all for all of your work on this. It's really commendable.
sorry, Margaret, can you just state your address too, Freda?
I'm sorry, Margaret Carrolls, 19 Gibbon Street, Precinct 4. I live on the other side of Pine Tree Brook.
Okay.
I have two things to say. First of all, I don't want to see that lower field turfed until a comprehensive plan of the whole campus, or at least this half of the campus, can be looked at. It doesn't make sense to piecemeal this. We have concerns about the turf. We're not against it, but we think that it has to be done very carefully and very mindfully of the environment that over there. So I really, really urge you, and I will speak at town meeting about that project, but to really look at the traffic, pedestrian, parking, everything. And I would hope that the lower field could be held off until a whole plan is made. And then second, I believe at some point it was said that the school where it was proposed to be wouldn't be used off hours, kind of as to make some of the neighbors happier. I really would like to see more public buildings available. So I would hope that this movement away from Home Inc. could allow for some off-hour use. We get great rental income from this use, and I believe it was Aaron that said, let's put a pool in, let's put some public amenities in, let's see what we can do this. We don't build things very often. And, you know, we need space for kids, for teens, for seniors, for everybody to use off hours. So I would hope that you guys would consider all that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Hans, you're up.
Hi, Hans Van Lingen, 400 Blue Hills Parkway. I am on the Milton Conservation Commission, but I'm not here representing the Conservation Commission. I just want to make sure that's clear. I am in favor of the project. I have been all along. I recognize the need for the additional space in the school buildings. It seems entirely appropriate. I just want to make sure, and just to reiterate some of the other concerns and that have been voiced so far in terms of the comprehensive planning and approach. And I think that having a thorough wetland delineation, of course, from the lens of a commissioner, I think is appropriate. You know, I recognize there will be additional challenges with the complexity of the change in the proposed Article 97. The last piece is I want to make sure that you're aware that there was a sort of haphazard field delineation along Guile Road during the site, or right just in advance of the site walk that was done for the Concom, that I think may have an impact on the proposal for the shift in the roadway and the building. I'm not saying that that's not permittable, but I just want to make sure that that's on your radar. So
Yep.
That's all.
Yeah, I saw the flags that Steve had put out there along Guile Road. All right. Thank you, Hans. Andrew?
My name is Andrew Meinert. I live at 46 Ridge Road. I just wanted to say that on hearing this new proposal, I think it's a fantastic idea, assuming it all proves feasible. It maintains the conservation interest along the parkway, both from like the trees perspective as well as the parkway and a historical perspective, and maintaining that kind of forested feel to it, and that moving it centrally, yeah, I think that it really helps out the home inc folks and a lot of their concerns, and I think it preserves the majority of the Lamb estate with the original intent, and makes the smallest imposition upon that original intent for the benefit of the community today. So yeah, I like it, and I'm interested to see how it evolves.
Excellent, thank you. And then I think the next one is that Judy White Orlando?
Hi, everybody. This is Judy White Orlando. I'm at 41 Deerfield Drive, and I'm a town meeting member from Precinct 9. And I just, in a very, very tough week for children in schools, this just gives me hope. And I just want to thank you all for your volunteer work. I want to thank Joanne Bonner for stepping up and helping. And all of you have just done a beautiful job, and I'm very thankful for your hard work.
Excellent, thank you. And seeing no other hands raised, I think that may be it for citizen speak. So I think our next thing is, kind of identifying our next meeting, which will probably occur after the town meeting. So, for folks, we were typically on about a 3-week schedule, but that puts us into kind of the end of June. So, for right now, it would be June 27th for folks. So I'll send that invite out, kind of get feedback from everybody and just see it. But tentatively now, if you can kind of keep that on your schedule, and we should have the feedback, after town meeting of kind of what occurred. So outside of that, I'll see if there's any other commentary, and if not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. And Michael, sorry, I'm trying.
Yep, no, sorry, Sharon. Just for town meeting, I think it's important to go forward with a presentation about where we are, how we got to where we are, and what we're proposing going forward. So I think if the select board votes, because this is a select board article, but presuming the select board goes along with this and makes a motion to refer this back, I think this committee, you and the committee, should make the presentation rather than just let this go. I think it's important for town meeting to really be brought up to date on the full breadth of what the committee has done, how the committee got to one point, and how we're getting to the next point. So just want to make sure we're all on board that, we're going to go forward with a presentation at town meeting so everybody's up to speed on everything.
Yeah, that's my full intent. I don't want to scrap the past 4 months of work that we've done to get to this point. I think everyone's kind of looking forward to this article getting debated a little bit. And I still anticipate kind of, even some high level, debate going on, for this, even though it's being referred back. But yes, my plan is to still develop a presentation and, speak at town meeting.
And we've got Sean on tap to speak to the school committee next Wednesday about the same
Just-
issues. The school committee will be informed.
I'm laughing because just when I thought all my meetings were over there.
Sorry, Betty.
Mike, I'm meeting with the select board on Tuesday.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I think we're on for Wednesday. I think we're on for next Wednesday as well.
Okay.
So you may be double booked. We may have-
Yeah,
we
just
may have
run
to-
around in both of
We
them.
may have to get you from one to the other. Just
I'll get 2 cameras and 2 laptops, so it'll be fun.
and that'll be the vote too, right? The select board's going to be the vote. I mean, look, the select board could vote right before town meeting or at town meeting to do the same thing, but I think it's cleaner if there's a full presentation of the select board and then the vote to refer, or the vote of the select board to make a motion to refer back at town meeting. I think that would probably be a lot cleaner.
Excellent. Yeah, and you're going to be pretty late on our agenda, Sean, so you should go to select board first and then we'll get you in.
That works. We'll just coordinate it around the Celtics schedule, assuming they'll be in the championship.
Oh, gosh.
Night before the finals.
So yeah, I with that, unless anybody has anything else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn and allow everyone to get on their holiday weekend. And again, thank you.
I'd like to move the motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. So another roll call vote. Ada?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Aqua?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
And Tim and Eamon. What do you guys say?
This is Eliza.
Oh,
Eliza, yeah.
sorry about that.
So,
I switched kids halfway through. Sorry.
I think they're wearing the same color though,
Yeah.
in fairness to Sean.
We're a yes.
You're a yes. Perfect. All right. Thank you all and see you all.
thank you all.
Bye. Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Take care.